Maureen, I think, is up next, and she's going to talk about building capacity. And when we talk about building capacity, there is a one-page sheet that has a triangle on it that looks at district capacity in your packet.
Let me find it and show you what it looks like. We're sorry that the print in the packets.
It just has a triangle on the upper left-hand corner that's kind of a tiered approach.
Okay. So I'm looking for a volunteer to read this quote by life coach Dave Anderson. So we're going to read, I'm going to have somebody read it and we're going to react to it. Do I have a volunteer out there? You do it if I give you the mic? Okay, sure, why not? I love it.
Leaders must become better communicators and enforcers of what they want done. Holding people accountable to high standards and results is nothing to apologize for. Failing to stretch them to their potential is.
Read it one more time for us, please.
Leaders must become better communicators and enforcers of what they want done. Holding people accountable to high standards and results is nothing to apologize for. Failing to stretch them to their potential is.
Thank you. We've read it, let's react. What are some of your thoughts? What are your connecting thoughts?
First thought is that holding people accountable to high standards and results is nothing to apologize for if you are doing that yourself. If you are holding yourself accountable or someone is holding you to those same standards.
That's so interesting that you note that because, I mean, my experience here in Arkansas is everybody is investing from the state level down to the school level and everybody's holding themselves accountable. In fact, your SEA team is doing the same sort of continuous improvement planning process with their own set of indicators. I mean, they're not just talking the talk, they are walking the walk. You're doing it at the district level, they're doing it at the school level. It's pretty hard to coach it if you've never lived it, if you've never walked it. So if you're supporting teams out there in the field, get in and experience it yourself. Number one, it's going to give you street cred because it's pretty hard to coach a team if you really don't have that credibility. But I agree, we all have to be accountable in this process. I just want you to know that the SEA has been very invested in the process for the past couple of years and they continue to do so. And I don't see that in every state. What else? Can we build on this thinking? Anybody else?
Go
ahead, anybody.
We hold our students to high standards. Why don't we hold ourselves to high standards? Or are we holding ourselves to high standards? Look at it like that.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I think enforcer is kind of a strong word, but if we use it in the context of holding ourselves accountable, then it's less of a strong word. We're not telling people to do something, we're showing them how to do something.
Okay.
And if we communicate, that's a two-way street, so it's not just about enforcing things that you're enforcing on people and pushing on people, but that communication has to make sure that there's understanding between both people. And so when you understand what's expected of you, most people do rise to that occasion and want to do what's expected, so there's less enforcing when it comes down to that.
My connecting thought to that is when you actually hold people accountable, it actually is a way of infusing confidence into them. It's saying that I believe you can do it. And it's amazing, we talked earlier about the people who influenced us to become educators ourselves. I find it amazing the power that humans have over other humans. We really do. I mean, as a human, we are very powerful and we have the power to influence. But we've got the power to influence in the wrong way and the right way. But I love this idea of communication being a two-way street. Again, bringing us back to the conversation. Anecdotally, everybody I talked to who's involved in continuous improvement planning tell me that the most valuable part of it is the conversation, the professional conversation that they've never been invited to before. The ability to talk with their peers and problem solve. Any other feelings, reactions?
I think public schools are begging for strong leaders, as is our nation. And I think that as leaders, we must step up to the plate. We're not going to always be liked. We're not going to always be loved. But it is our job to ensure that what goes on in our district and goes on in our schools is done, because our students are our greatest gift and they are our future. And I believe in public schools.
Amen. Love it. That was terrific. Very good. Donna, you've got a standing ovation there. I think this goes back to what we started talking about this morning. No more apologies. We know what effective practice is. We have a moral obligation to set those standards and uphold those standards. And really what we should be apologizing for is the last sentence, failing to stretch individuals to their potential, whether it be district superintendents, principals, teachers, and the students. Sam has, Dr. Sam Redding, our boss, I don't think I've talked about the law of proximity yet today, have I? All the days are meshing together. But he kind of talks about his law of proximity. And his laws of proximity are this. We've got to get to and influence the people who are closest to kids. Who are the people who are closest to kids? Teachers and their caregivers. I'm hesitant to say parents because families come in all shapes and sizes. So who's ever caring for those kids, whether it be grandmother, aunt, uncle, grandfather, sibling, whatever, we got to get to those people and improve their practices. As I said, caregivers send us the best kids they have. They don't send us the worst. So we've got to do with what we are presented, right? But it's only through the improvement of the professional practices of those closest to the students that we're going to be able to accelerate and move the needle on student achievement. That law of proximity, I always think about, in full disclosure, as I drive around, drove around Arkansas from Jonesboro to Little Rock last night, I drive a little bit differently when I look in my rearview mirror and I see a state trooper. Right? So if I got a state trooper a little closer to me, I drive a little bit differently. You know from your teaching days that if you had a student acting up in the classroom, sometimes all you had to do was change your proximity, move a little closer to that student, right? Okay? So there's a lot to be said for the law of proximity. We've got to get as close as we can. So think about, I don't know if you remember in the module that we showed, there was these circles within circles. And it was like the State Department was way out here and the student was way in the middle. And I'm sure you were looking for yourself in those concentric circles, like where do I fall? Like, how far away from the child am I? So I think we can go to the next slide. This is also sort of a representation of what you saw in the module. So this is the pyramid that we're all sort of familiar with. We've got the SEA at the bottom, then the region, which are probably your co-ops, is that what you call them here? Your regional level or your co-ops. You've got the LEA, the local education agency, the district, coach, consultant, district liaison, SISs, and school leadership team. And we're all pretty familiar with this, but if you notice, each one of those bars or layers is sort of a standalone. And in the support system, find yourself in this pyramid. Did you locate where your location is in the pyramid? Okay. Let's flip to the next slide. What if we turn that pyramid on its side? We had sort of a new vision at ADI. We're going to kind of retire the pyramid model, and we're going to the domino model. Because in fact, you've got to lean into and lean on who's ever closest to you to get to the student. So if you're at the state level, you're going to have to lean in and lean on the region. Region, you're going to have to lean in and lean on the district. District, lean in, lean on the coach or the SIS. Coach, lean in, lean on the school team. What's different about this domino model from the pyramid model? Anybody notice anything? I hear it.
The larger the smaller, it goes smaller.
Yeah. Go back to the pyramid model, Steph. The SEA is the big foundational piece there. When we move to the domino model, the state is smaller, because quite frankly, their human capital is really limited. They are the smallest team out of this whole network of support. The largest team are the schools out there, then the coaches, then the districts, then the regions. So think about that shift in thinking, and most importantly, the second bullet, who leans on you, who's counting on you, and then the last bullet for me is, what do you need to make it work? Do not be afraid to tell the people that you're leaning on what you need to make you successful in your role. They might not have any idea what you need to be successful in your role. Throughout the week, we've heard, Stephanie and I have heard that the information we shared with people is something that has been valuable and that they've needed. And they wish they would have had it a year ago, but you know, it's baby steps, we're getting there. But if you need something, if you feel that you need something that you're not getting, then you have to let the people that you lean on know what you need. People don't know what they don't know. And if the folks that you're leaning on don't know what you need, then you owe it to yourself to let them know what you need to make you successful in your role. So, what will the district, your district, be looking for in order to measure a school's progress? I can tell you practically, if you're coaching a district or looking in on district plans, I hope you're seeing time carved into their agendas to be reviewing their school plans. That's a real red flag to me when I look at district agendas and I look at a running record of district agendas, and they never mention looking in on school plans. They don't have principals invited to the open chair. It says to me that there's a disconnect between what the district is doing and what the schools need. Your district is going to be looking to understand when and how to support schools, and they can only do that if they're looking in on their school plans. And then they're going to be looking to find some successful implementation strategies. That other important sort of takeaway from identifying successes, you want to scale up success. So once you find the sweet spot of success, you're always going to be transferring that knowledge, like how can we do this in another area? This strategy worked well with this indicator, can we transfer that over to another indicator? Don't be afraid to set expectations. Don't apologize for it, but you also have to be reasonable. You've got to walk in the shoes of the people that you're setting the expectations for. And as you noted when we began this conversation of this segment of our afternoon, when you're holding yourself accountable, it's easier to hold others accountable. When you're doing it yourself, you have nothing to hide your head, you have no shame. If I can do it, you can do it too. Turning it back over to Stephanie, I believe. She's going to talk about setting some overarching expectations, but knowing we have to carve in some room for school level specific expectations.
So earlier today I talked about, I'm going to leave you with some homework. One of those pieces of homework is talking about your expectations for schools. The state has some expectations as far as they have some key indicators, they need to use your needs assessments to help drive your work. It's okay for the district to also set expectations for your leadership teams at both the district and building level. So we're going to look at some of the expectations you might have for your school or building level leadership teams. So the first one you can see that all teams, or I'm going to go skip to the second one. Leadership teams meet twice a month for at least 1 hour to work on school improvement. So that is an indicator, and that could be an expectation of the state that we really do want all of our schools to strive to meet twice a month for at least an hour. But if you look on the right side under school-specific expectations, sometimes there are single school districts who just struggle to meet once a month. And so for right now, that's all they can do. And so help them perfect meeting once a month. So you might give them an exception until they maybe next year can meet twice a month. Sometimes when they have less capacity, they just can't meet that often.
And also, along with single school districts, in Illinois, everybody thinks Chicago, everything's urban, big districts. Once you get south of I-80 in Illinois, we have a multitude of single school districts. And that was a bit of a challenge, an obstacle to overcome, because with a single school district, are they working on district level indicators, or are they working on school level indicators? So I think as a group, you've got to come to consensus for those particular situations where you have single school districts, and there are probably some of your rural districts. What are your expectations going to be for them? And as Stephanie is showing us, the expectations can vary, but there's still expectations of achievement. The unfortunate sort of experience that I have is I don't not only go into cultures of low expectation, I go into cultures of no expectations. And that's really, really dangerous. I mean, low expectation is bad enough, but no expectation, know that expectations can be different, but you're customizing those for that particular situation.
Okay, so we're going to look at the last one. Districts provide district-wide professional development trainings or sessions for all of their schools twice a year. So maybe that's an expectation you set for yourselves. We're going to provide PD a couple times a year for our schools. But recognizing that some schools need a little bit more hand-holding, a little bit more assistance, a little bit more push, right? So some of those expectations that you set might need to accommodate different types of schools and districts. But as Maureen said, we've got to set the expectations in order to move forward. Additionally, we're going to use these expectations when we're providing support and feedback for schools. As a district leadership team, you need to collaborate together. I'm going to ask you as part of your homework, a second piece is going to be who from our district will provide support and feedback using coaching comments to our schools. So who in your district can be some of that support? Who can look at the schools, think about what they're doing, and provide feedback to them? These expectations can come in handy when you're trying to collaborate as a team and give consistent feedback across the board. These are some examples of expectations and resources that a district might look at when they're trying to support schools. So I'll start on the left-hand side. Let's say we were deciding that we were going to give them feedback on their indicator and their indicators and their work. Are the schools viewing the clusters of indicators, or are they siloing the indicators, thinking of them as individual pieces? Does the leadership team seem to be using Wise Ways research? Does it sound like they're having conversations and using a culture of candor when they're doing these things? Are their plans and tasks achievable? Earlier we talked about the tasks is really where they kind of spin their wheels if they don't get it right. So make sure you take a look at those tasks as a district leadership team or a support system to your schools. So maybe this week we're going to provide feedback on their tasks. As a team, we're going to go in, split up the schools, and provide feedback. Is there evidence? Are teams on target? Are their dates realistic? And are they meeting those dates, or are they letting them fall behind? Teaming, of course, is a leadership team meeting on a regular basis. Is there a designated leader or process manager? Are they distributing the work? A lot of times we go in, especially with building level leadership teams, and we see the principal has 22 things assigned to him or her. That's a lot. We want to make sure that you vary the responsibility and distribute the work. And then leadership. Is the building principal a change leader? Is he communicating the message of change? Are changes being made to the principal's time? Again, going back to the indicator about principals spend 50% of his or her time in classrooms or with teachers. That's a huge amount of time, but that's what successful schools and districts are doing. So are we making a better use of our principal's time? Does that seem to be happening? Of course, one of the ways to tell is if the principal has a bunch of tasks that are assigned to him or her, right? It's probably not the best use of his or her time. So now we're going to talk about what you can see in the system. I'm going to show you a few ways. The district kind of has two things that you have to do, two jobs, right? You have the district leadership team who is working as a team, using a culture of candor, and assessing and creating plans for their own indicators. And then you're supporting the school. You might be training them when they need help. You might be providing coaching or support and feedback. So the district kind of has two responsibilities in regards to ACSIP or the InStar process. I'm going to show you the different ways that you can see it, and then I'm going to ask Maureen to assist me. And we're going to go in the system, and if you have your computers, I will encourage you to log in as a district. If you don't, it's okay. We're going to use the district demo site, okay? So when districts log into the system, the districts can obviously work on their own district improvement plans, where they assess, create plans, and monitor their implementation process, just like schools do. But they have their own set of indicators. Additionally, districts and coaches from the district level can review the work of each and every school. So if a process manager is creating meeting agendas, adding meeting minutes, and entering the information that the team has decided, so the assessments, their priorities, the plans, the tasks, the target dates, if the process manager at the building and the district level are doing that on a regular basis, and either entering it at the meeting or shortly thereafter, that information is then live. Everybody can see it. So the district can see the school's work, the state can see the district and the school's work. All of that information is live, and you don't have to wait for 6 months down the road or a year or end of the year to come. You can see all of that information. So you don't have to wait to find out if they're struggling. You can also provide feedback to your schools. It's a great way to keep track of what's going on in your schools and consistently provide feedback. Our opinion is that just from the feedback we've gotten from schools and districts, if schools are meeting twice a month for at least an hour, how often should they expect to receive feedback from their districts? If they're meeting twice a month, how many times? Twice? Does that sound reasonable? They're working, they're making plans, they need feedback, they need support. So it's our theory that if schools are meeting twice a month, they should receive some type of feedback or support from their districts twice a month.
And believe me, that's all about the law of proximity. If the school senses that the district is going to lean in and look, they're going to behave a little bit differently than when they know a district is going to be totally hands-off, right? I know I behave differently if somebody's overseeing what I do than when they're not.
And a lot of times it becomes compliant once you realize nobody's looking, nobody's watching. It's just something we're submitting, nobody cares, nobody's looking, and we do care. The district or the state is working very hard on providing feedback to districts as well. And again, with the new ESSA, that's going to be a huge responsibility of the districts to provide feedback and support to their schools. This is a really great way to be able to do that, to have all of these resources to be able to do that for your schools. Additionally, districts and coaches can use the information and the data from all of their schools. There is a way for you to aggregate some of the data from your school's work so that you as a district can make your decisions about your improvement plan based on the needs of your schools. You have that information. I can see where my schools are struggling and where maybe they're finding successes. So where they're struggling, we can provide feedback to them and choose some of the indicators at the district level that will better help, maybe give them some flexibility or provide them a little bit more support. And I'm going to kind of stop right there. And does anybody, since you want to probably get in there and see where you can coach, if you would like to log into your district page now, I'm going to pull mine up here.
You want me to?
So I have a question. Is the only person that can make coaching comments, is there just one person in the district that can make coaching comments?
I will let Stephanie answer that. Get it pulled up here. Shutting down.
Yeah, I don't know why it shut down. There is the district superintendent and process manager have a login and password. Who asked this question? Because I wasn't looking at it. The district superintendent and process manager have a login and password for, to coach or to put their information for their district indicators. They can also use that to provide feedback for their schools. However, if a district divides up the schools and they have, let's say, 7 people, and they each have a certain number of schools, we can get coaching logins for you to do that. Does that make sense? Okay, yeah, we can do that. So it'll be easier so you can do that on your own. I apologize, I'm not sure what's going on. Give me just a second. My computer. I don't know what happened. I just couldn't touch it. Y'all still awake? Okay, sorry about that. Maureen's going to go to industar.org. And I'm going to use a demo site. So if you want to see what a district would normally see when they logged in, but you maybe don't have a login and password, you could use AR District as the login and AR District as a password. Did they ever write it? And this is just a demo site. If you want to play around with it and not mess up your own site, you're more than welcome to do that. It's not touchscreen. Sorry, old school.
Are they both AR district, is that what you said?
Yes, AR District, AR District. She's got to go back a few years. It's not touch screen. I have no mouse.
Let me try again. Do you need this now? We're gonna get there. All right.
Okay. So this is what a district would normally really see. Do you agree? Thumbs up, that's what you see, right? So if, I'm not gonna have Maureen push anything, but if I wanted to go into my district leadership team indicators, I would click district success markers, right? Okay. But you'll notice at the end there's an extra tab called coaching. I'm going to show you 2 ways that you can provide feedback, or where you can provide feedback to your schools. And then I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint and talk about what type of feedback you should provide to your schools. So Maureen's going to click coaching. And I want to choose a school. I only have one choice, so I'll choose that one. And I'm going to click to show their dashboard. And you can follow along and choose one of your schools. So now I'm seeing one of my schools. As a district, I can't edit anything a district or a school has put into the system, but I can see everything that they have put into the system, okay? The only thing that I can do is provide feedback to them or support to them. So there's 2 ways you can do it. The first way is by clicking Coaching Review. And in the future, to be honest, right now I'm showing you 2 places. In the future, we're hoping to merge it, so there's just one great place to go, all right? So here, at the top, there's 2 buttons called Coaching Review and Coaching Feedback. I will be honest, it doesn't matter which one you choose, they all kind of filter down to the same place. The difference is this. A coaching comment was initially built so that you could provide feedback about an individual indicator. Coaching Review is where you can provide feedback in general, right? Again, they both go down to the same place. Our boss just likes 2 buttons. I don't know. So Maureen's going to click one of them. And you'll notice that it just pops open. It asks for your name and then your feedback message or your piece of, support. I could actually meander through some of the reports down at the bottom, and maybe if Maureen clicks Task Report, you can see that the coaching comment feature stays open. So you could go through those reports, see how your schools are doing, and the box at the top stays open the same way you're doing that. Easy? Okay, I'm going to have her go back to the dashboard. It's up in the right-hand corner. Don't use the back button. Get my client service hat on for that one. Okay, and I'm going to have her show the dashboard again. And if she goes to school success indicators, I'm going to actually go inside of the school's plan. So of course, this is the school's main menu, and you might want to look around here and look around to see what type of feedback. In your packet, there is let me find it here. There's a 1-pager, and on the back side of it, it has a magnifying glass. Looks like this. The front side of it has qualities of a coach, and we'll go through that in just a minute. But the back side, the state of Georgia asked me to create a list of, if I was looking for recent activity, which report should I look at? If I wanted to know progress, which report should I look at? We made this a couple of months back, and of course you can see on it, snapshot report is there if you want to look at recent activity. A comprehensive report is there if you want to look at everything. But honestly, we have a new report, so that kind of makes all other reports look about this big. There's a new button called Plan Management. Has anybody played with that yet or seen that yet? Plan Management, Maureen can go ahead and click it. This is going to show you all of the work that the school did kind of in a big column. It's going to show you when they started, the target date for their plan, how many tasks they've created, what's the progress as far as implementing that objective. This report will give you a huge bird's eye view of what the schools have been working on, okay? And the great thing is they're very interactive, so you can see the first one has 13 tasks. If Maureen actually clicked on the 13, which I won't have her do, it would actually take you to the list of those 13 tasks. And then you can come back to this report. This is really great information if you want to be able to just look at the progress that your schools and districts are making. And then if she goes back to the top under the navigation toolbar, you'll see that there's a second way that she can provide coaching feedback. You move over to the left a little bit. There you go. And there's a button here called Coaching Comments, all the way at the top on the right. And those coaching comments, just because you're on a separate page, you can provide feedback over there as well. Does that sound easy and doable? You know where to do it? Okay, now I'm going to show you what a coaching comment, how you might write. Okay? Okay. In your packet at the very end, there's a document with, or like, it looks like a worksheet, and it has coaching comments and reviews. There's little puzzle pieces on it. And I'm going to tell you the story of this paper, or this worksheet. A few years back, we had InduStar Summits, which were annual workshops for states that use the InduStar system. And my chosen topic that was given to me was about coaching comments and reviews and how to make very good coaching comments. Was there a structure or a way that we could easily do this for our schools and districts? So I did a little data mining in our system, and I came across a coach out of the state of Virginia, and her name was Courtney Graves. And every time I looked at her coaching comments, although they were small, they were always very good. And so I asked Courtney what it was about her coaching comments. Did she have a structure for putting the system or for sending these coaching comments? Again, she also always got responses from her schools, which amazed me. Because again, although that should be an expectation, a lot of schools don't respond. So I couldn't figure out how Courtney could get these schools to respond to her. So we sat down and had a meeting. And Courtney says she was taught to break it out like this. She always starts with a glow. Always feels that she has to find something positive for the team. So whether it's congratulations, I see you've been meeting on a regular basis twice a month, or congratulations, I see that you have just met a new objective. Find something that's positive and put that in your coaching comment. She then gives them a grow. She talks about something maybe they need to work on. She might find that in the wise ways. She might find it in the resource, but she gives them something they might need to work on. She provides reflective questioning. So she asks them the question, but she doesn't give them the answer. And that's all to build capacity, right? We're not giving them the answer, even though it's a struggle for me. I always want to just give you the answer because you know the answer. You have to get them to get their own answer. And then next steps, she gives the team something to work on. She always asks them to do something else. So it could be, at the next leadership team, let's make sure we create at least 2 tasks for each objective. Or be sure the process manager gets the meeting minutes in before next Friday. She gives them something else to do. The great thing about those is those usually get a response. She always seems to get a response, and I think it's because she's asking them to do something and they want to let her know they have. Okay? Maureen's going to talk a little bit about question stems here, but the great thing about this worksheet is I would go back as a district leadership team, make a few copies of this, get together as a team and say, let's practice on our worksheet. Let's practice giving feedback to the schools. And once you get it down, you can actually just take those and provide feedback in the system. Sound easy enough? Maureen, you want to?
So Stephanie's giving you the script for comments and reviews. How many people here think this might be helpful? I really do. I mean, this reminds me of like, when I was a brand new teacher giving report card comments, and there was actually like little, little cheat books out there to help you kind of get your thinking started about what to say. But what I like to focus in is providing this reflective questioning. And the example I always give is of my dear mother, who I think of every day. We lost her 7 years ago, but she was an expert on reflective questioning in this way. So I'll give you one of her examples. When we were teenagers, we'd be going on a date or going to a party or whatever, we'd always say, "Mom, what time do we have to be home?" What did she do? She would always turn the table and say, "What time do you think you should be home?" And as adults, she told us that inevitably we always came home earlier than she would have allowed us to stay out. So that's kind of the whole, I'd like you to kind of remember that little anecdote, because she knew that she was raising good kids. Now I'll tell you, it worked perfectly well for me, the oldest. My brother, it worked perfectly well for him. But my sister is still sort of the renegade, and it didn't always work perfectly well for her. So my mother had to negotiate with her a little bit, but for most of the folks that you work with, if you ask the right question, they will come up with the right answer. And that's the knowledge that gets cemented. It's through self-discovery. That's the stuff we remember. It's not the stuff that people rattle off at us and tell us. They've got to feel it, they got to discover it on their own. So on the back side of this script that you have for the glow, grow, question, and next step, there are some reflective question stems that will help you out in particular situations. So if you flip over to the back side of this, you'll get the what, the why, and the how. And some purposes. So if you're looking for questions that seek reasons or evidence. And by the way, when I think of evidence, I think the best synonym for evidence is proof. So when we talk about people, teams writing evidence in their plan of full implementation, all you need to say is, how can you prove that? That's the question to ask. Can you prove that?
And who's the proof for? Does anybody know? When we talk about evidence and proof, is it for LaDonna?
We're having a sidebar.
No, I'm saying, who needs evidence? I mean, who's the evidence for? Sorry, I didn't even see you have a sidebar.
It's not for LaDonna.
It's for you to know what made this process successful. It's for nobody else. You think the state needs to see 27 sign-in sheets? No, it's about evidence that you're being consistent, right?
The next bank of questions right underneath, asking questions that shift the team from conversations to interpretive, from descriptive to interpretive. They're going to have descriptive conversations during what phase of the process? Just the facts, ma'am. What phase of the process is that? Assessment phase. Then, when we get into the create the plan, we want to do some root cause analysis, right? We're not looking for excuses, we're looking for explanations. So why do we think this happened? So you can use some of these stems. At the bottom of the left-hand column, questions that require more than a yes-no response. I always try to ask questions that do not require a yes-no response. If you ask a question and you get a yes or a no, that's the answer you deserve. You didn't ask the right question. Questions that help identify issues within the context of the bigger picture. Questions to help the team set goals and determine actions, which would be the tasks. And then questions that direct focus back to the team, self-reflection questions. So again, remember my anecdote about my mom. Sometimes I think most times if we ask the right question, people rise to the occasion and come up with the right answer.
Okay, we're going to just talk quickly. We're almost done. You guys are going to get out early. What does it take to make collaboration and communication work? These are three really important things that I think everybody kind of needs to keep in mind. We need support from both sides. Maureen earlier talked about the triangle that was kind of on its side. We have to support, to agree with or show approval, or to give help or assistance to. You have to provide that support for your schools And it's okay to ask for support from those above you, right? It's okay to do that. Be consistent. Have the same principles, especially if you're supporting schools. Be consistent about the message. That's probably one of the biggest things with coaching and support and providing feedback is getting all of these different messages from different people. You ask a different person, you're going to get a different message. We kind of have a running joke at work in client services. Sometimes if people don't like Luann's answer, who's the other person who does client services, they call me, and the answer is still the same, and they get really frustrated. It's the same answer. But we're being consistent. This is the way it has to move forward. And then again, have expectations for your schools. It's time for homework, and I'm going to add one more. All right? So the first one is I want you to make sure you write these down on your paper. So I'm going to see if everybody's writing. The first one is who from the district will provide feedback to our schools or support to our schools. So I want you to go back to your leadership teams and figure out how are we going to provide support for our schools. She has got it right over here. So look, she took a picture. Perfect. 2, how often are we going to provide feedback to our schools? Coaching comments. 3, what are we going to be looking for? Copycats over here, all taking pictures now. Look it up. What are our expectations that we're setting as a district for our schools? And then the 4th thing I'm going to add here, which the picture takers can't get, so they're going to have to write it down, is I want you to go back, dig through the industar.org website, look at the training modules, look at the resources, the videos, indicators in action. There's movies or little skits about leadership teams, publications. I want you to go back and find at least one resource that you're going to go back and share with your district leadership teams and your school leadership teams to build capacity. All right?
All right.
Yeah. You guys are all so quiet at the end of the day. All right, y'all good? That's it. And we are going to be up here. If anybody has questions, you're more than welcome to ask us questions now or come up to us after.
Thank you so much, and so sincerely, the best of luck in your work this year. You're going to make a difference, and you're going to make a difference for kids.